Hi, I'm Christian, and I want to show you James and explain what it's all about. Let's take a look.
First, let me tell you a little bit about our research at ETH Zurich. We are interested in how we can improve the collaboration among distributed developers. And what we try to do is to really measure the difficulties that you find in distributed development, and then based on what we measure, to come up with really good tools that can support distributed teams. The second point about measuring the difficulties, that is where this system James comes in. So we hope that this tool James allows us to answer two questions. And the first one is, what happens in your team that really hinders or interrupts you from your programming workflow? And then the second question, how often does it happen? And now the interesting part is that these questions can really only be answered by programmers telling us whenever these interruptions happen. We hope that you will help us to find answers to these questions. And to make it as easy as possible for you, we built this little website that I'm going to show you now. So the first thing we want to do is go to the URL cloudstudio.ethz.ch/James. And now the first time around when we come to the page and we're going to log in via our GitHub account. So you're going to get redirected to GitHub. You log in with your username and password. And then you will be asked if you allow the application James to get access to your user profile and other public things like repositories. But the only thing we use it for is to get your username so we can have that as a unique identifier. So say allow access, and then you're redirected back and you have your username up here. So the first thing you see is that there's these 4 fields. One's for the local team, and then you have the same here for the remote team. And these are counters that we use to count different kinds of information. So let's say you're working in Eiffel Studio and at some point you're missing documentation, then you will increase this counter. Let's go through this. If you click on this, you will get information about what these counters mean. So lack of documentation means you would like to use some feature that has been developed by your local team, not the remote team, but you're not sure how to use it. So that sort of hinders you from progressing in your work, and the documentation is insufficient, so you cannot continue easily. Now, missing functionality is maybe more obvious. So your local team, someone in your local team was supposed to implement certain features, but hasn't done it, and so you can't continue with what you would like to do at the moment. And the next point is incorrect functionality, meaning someone implemented features, but they are broken, they don't work, so you either have to fix them or wait for them to be fixed before you can continue with what you were planning to work on right now. Then we also have a text box for any other kind of event that is not covered by one of these 3. Okay, so we have the local team, remote team, and now what you want to do is when you start working is to start a session. So I say start session, and now all these buttons actually become enabled, and I can click on these counters, and I can also enter text here. And the first thing you see now is we have a session timer that is really counting the session while you're programming. So when you start programming on your project, you start a session, and then during that session you keep track of this missing information and these other events. So now let me enter some text here. For example, I can say can't continue due to merge conflict need to resolve it first. Right? That would be an example of a case that is not covered by one of these others. Good. So the typical workflow would now be you're in your Eiffel Studio and you're programming and working. So in the browser, the session is running so that we know for how long you're working on this thing. And now whenever you have a problem here that something doesn't work as you would like, switch into the browser and you just click on the counter or enter a text here. To make this even a bit more convenient, there are also key bindings. So what you can do is if you press Control and then the number that you see in front of you, so 1 to 8, then this will actually increase the counter or put your cursor into the text box. So with Control 3, for example, then it increases counter. Control 5 increases the counter for the missing documentation of a remote team. Okay, another shorthand is if you're entering text, what we would like to have is to get an idea of at what point these hindering events occur, and this is why we have these little timestamps. And now if you're in a text box and you just hit return 3 times, then it automatically inserts one of these timestamps, and I could now say blocked because out of coffee. Okay, and the same is true for this other text box, so 3 times enter and you get the timestamp. Okay, so now once you're done with programming, ending your programming session for the day, then you also just here say end and submit. So it will, you have to say, okay, I really want to submit this, and then this data is stored in our database, and we can start a new session if we want, or simply log out. Let me quickly explain what is important so that we can get data that is really useful for our research. So first, you should, whenever you're programming on your project, as soon as you start, you should also start one of these sessions in James, and as soon as you end, you should end the session in James. Also, if nothing happens during your session, meaning you don't increase any of the counters, you don't write any text, nevertheless, you should submit that session, because that is also very useful information for us. And finally, what we really need is that you try to make a continuous effort over at least 2 weeks recording these problems that you encounter while working on the project.
All right, so that is James. If you have any questions left, then don't hesitate to contact me. And thanks for watching. Bye.